Welcome to Me Reimagined, a space where we step into the impossible version of ourselves, a version we only dream of, so we can create lives we love and the impact we are meant to make. Dear Diary, am I the only one in this relationship? If you've ever found yourself feeling like the emotional glue of your relationship, the one keeping the connection alive, the one checking in, the one making sure things don't fall apart. Oh, this episode is for you. Because damn, it's exhausting. Oh, sweetheart, let's talk about that moment when you realize you are carrying the weight of the relationship. Your partner, they're just there. Maybe they're nice. Maybe they're even trying. But you are the one driving the emotional bus and you are tired. Let's take a moment to talk about this great illusion, emotional labor. It's like the Wi-Fi of relationships. Invisible, but the second it's gone, everything falls apart. And if no one acknowledges it, does it even exist? The answer to that question is a resounding yes, and you feel it. The thing is, the person doing the heavy emotional lifting is usually the one who's most tuned into the relationship. And this is typically women, you and me, right? We were trained from birth to be the feelers, the fixers, the peacemakers. Meanwhile, your partner, blissfully unaware, cruising through life, benefiting from all that behind the scenes work without even realizing it. And listen, I get it because I've been there. I've been the one checking in, holding space, making sure the relationship doesn't wither and die from sheer neglect. I felt that gnawing, quiet panic that if I stopped trying, the whole thing would crumble. And that fear, oh, it ran deep. Because it wasn't just about the relationship. It was about what it would mean if it did crumble. If I wasn't needed. If I wasn't holding it together, did I even matter? Ugh, that's a rough one. And darling, I know what it feels like. Every time you pull back, hoping they'll step up, and they don't, it stings. Because what does that even mean? Do they not care? Are you just more invested? Or, and this one's a punch to the gut, have you been overcompensating so much that they never had to? Nobody wants to feel like they're begging for connection. You don't want to be the person constantly nudging, reminding, making emotional bids that go unanswered. It's exhausting. And honestly, it makes you resent them. Not because they're doing anything wrong per se, but because you're stuck in this loop where your needs aren't being met and you don't know how to get them met without doing more. More asking, more explaining, more trying to get them to see you. And when that hurts too much, oh, you disconnect. You numb out. Because feeling that lonely inside a relationship, it's brutal. So you scroll, you binge, you throw yourself into work, anything not to feel the ache of unmet needs. But you know what I learned? You can't go over it, under it. You can't go around it. You have to go through it. That's the only way this changes. But let's talk about why we do this. Why you are out here hustling for love like it's a limited resource. Like if you don't work hard enough, it's going to slip through your fingers. That's the mechanism of earned love, darling. Somewhere along the way, you learned that love wasn't freely given. It had to be secured, maintained, worked for. You absorbed the message that you have to perform to be loved. Maybe it started in childhood when being good got you praise and being difficult got you ignored. Maybe it was past relationships where affection was conditional on how easy you made things for the other person. And the cultural messages you received reinforce this. Be the cool girl, the understanding wife, the emotional rock. If you don't manage the emotional climate, the relationship won't survive. And that belief is hard to shake. And so you people please. You anticipate needs before they're even spoken. You mold yourself to be more palatable, more accommodating, more desirable. And at the heart of it all, you're trying to control their experience. If you make them happy, maybe they won't leave. If you make this easy for them, they'll choose you. If you smooth out every rough edge and never rock the boat, if you don't need too much, then you'll be safe. Oh, but babe, what happens when you play this game? You don't get the love that you need. You get tolerated, appreciated maybe, but not deeply, soulfully loved in the way that you crave. Because you're not actually allowing yourself to be fully seen. And worse, you don't even love yourself in the process. You abandon your own needs, your own desires, your authenticity, all in the service of making the relationship work. And that's why you end up exhausted, resentful, and empty. Because love that has to be earned, that's not love, that's labor. So let's flip this, my love. What if the real issue isn't them? What if the real question isn't, why won't they step up? But why do I keep holding it all together? What if the fear isn't that they don't love you enough, but that if you stop over functioning, everything will fall apart? Because here's the truth. If someone is only present in the relationship because you're doing all the emotional labor, is that even a relationship you want? And if you're gripping so tightly because you're afraid of what happens if you don't, are you actually in a partnership, or are you just managing a dynamic that doesn't actually work for you? So today, I want you to try on the idea of pulling back. Now, for those of you who shuddered when I said that, oh yes, I see you. I'm going to give you a practice that's going to help you experiment with pulling back. Because without support, pulling back can feel impossible. So what do I mean when I say pulling back? Well, when you've spent your life equating love with effort, pulling back, the idea of doing less to support the relationship can feel terrifying. Like, if you stop proving, stop trying, stop anticipating their needs before they realize they have needs, then what? What happens? Does the relationship fall apart? Do they even notice you stopped? Or do you just sit there in silence, feeling the ache of absence where your effort used to be? This is why we pull back. Not to play games, not to manipulate, but to see. And this is where it gets good, sweetheart. Because when you stop doing so much, you get clarity. You get to see what's actually there underneath all of your work. Because when you're constantly filling in the gaps, it's impossible to know if there was ever anything solid beneath your effort. And yeah, that can be scary, but it's also where your power is. Because instead of chasing connection, you get to stand in your worth and let the relationship reveal itself. So, if you've been feeling this, and if you're tired of being the one keeping the emotional wheels turning, here's my challenge. Pull back. Stop doing so much. Again, not in a game playing manipulative way, but in a let's see what's here way. Give it some space, watch, and let yourself be surprised by what happens when you stop trying so damn hard to hold it all together. Maybe they step up. Maybe they don't. Either way, you learn something, and that's where your real power is. But let's be honest, pulling back is hard. When love has felt like a drug, something you chase for that next high of validation, well, stepping back can trigger panic, anxiety, the deep gnawing feeling of, what if they don't come toward me? And so that's why you need a support practice here to help you. And that's called shifting your state. So, what we're doing today, it isn't just about figuring out and knowing something needs to change. It's about actually feeling different. Because when you shift your state, oh, you shift your energy. And from that place, you make different choices. But let's take a minute and talk about what do you do when you just can't get there? When you can't pull back because the argument is replaying in your head on an endless loop and you feel like crap. When you're in that place where your mind won't let go, where that story, oh, it's gripping you so tightly that no amount of logic or willpower can shake it, you don't need to analyze it more. You don't need to figure it out. You need relief. You need a break from the noise. And that means shifting your state. That is also precisely the time it's the hardest to get there. That's the time where when someone suggests meditation, it makes you want to slap them happy. So when even dancing feels like a big lift and the idea of affirmations just makes you want to roll your eyes, but oh God, you want your mind to shut up. You know the spiraling thoughts are just pulling you down, 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 and until suddenly it's 3 a.m. and you're crying on the kitchen floor. Yeah, yes, that was oddly specific. Can you tell I've been there? So the first thing to do when you are stuck, you want to shift your state, you want out of your head and you just can't get there. The first thing you need to do is find something to crack you open, to let the emotions flow so that the energy can actually move. Maybe it's a specific Netflix episode that makes you sob. For me, oh God, that was Grey's Anatomy. Almost any episode would do. Maybe you need belly laughter or primal screaming or wailing into a pillow. Or maybe it's creative, right? Throwing paint onto a canvas or writing your story. Because when you feel like this, you lock yourself down so tightly, you don't even realize how numb you've become. And until you thaw that, you can't get the energy moving. About a decade ago, rage rooms or smash rooms became popular, and I always used to wish I lived near one. Also, a batting cage. Oh, swinging a bat with force. The sound of the crack it makes as it connects with the ball. Man, for me, that is the sound of channel tension. Whatever it is that you choose to do, whatever your thing is, once the energy starts moving again, then you can use an intentional practice to change your state. For me, that's breath work. For my co-founder, Idun, it's dancing. But whether it's meditation or activations, you'll know you've gone far enough when you feel different. Maybe lighter, maybe tingly, maybe like a weight has suddenly lifted off your chest. Some people feel warm, others feel jelly-like. The point is, you'll know because suddenly the tension, that story that felt so life or death, it suddenly doesn't grip you quite the same way. And you'll be able to press pause on that story. If you want support with this, if you want somebody who has your back, who's been there and come through that looking glass, use the Calendly link in the show notes to schedule a call with me. We'll dig into your story and get intentional about what kind of emotional relationship you want. But now, I bet you're wondering, okay, what happens if I actually do this? If I actually stop running round and round the hamster wheel and I do pull back? How do I know when I've hit the tipping point? Huh, I've got you. You'll know you've got the answer that you didn't want to know when you stop initiating emotional connection. And guess what? Nothing changes. You've been the one always reaching out, sending the sweet texts, planning the date nights, checking in on their day. And when you take that step back, what happens? Crickets. No good morning messages. No how was your day? Just radio silence. And that's a red flag, sweetheart. For anyone who played Monopoly, you'll know that the reaction is to go straight to jail. Do not pass go, do not collect 200. You'll also know you've got the answer you didn't want to know when you finally speak up about your needs and instead of curiosity or care, You get defensiveness, shutdown, or the classic, "Ugh, you're overreacting." Maybe you muster up the courage to say that you need more quality time together. And instead of being happy that someone they love wants to spend more time with them, they snap back with, "I have a lot of work. Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" Or they just shut down completely, leaving you feeling unheard and dismissed. This defensiveness, yep, it's another major red flag. And lastly, you'll know you've got the answer that you didn't want to know when you know you're exhausted from being the emotional backbone, but thinking about stepping back to see if they step up, huh, the very idea fills you with dread because in your heart, you fear that they're going to carry on as if nothing has changed. Just that thought of pulling back makes you feel sick inside because deep down, you already know they won't notice. Ugh, that gut-wrenching feeling? Yeah, that's the biggest red flag of all. But sweetheart, you are not alone in this. I've been there. We are in this together. So what we are going to do now is set you up with a simple 5-step plan to pull back, to test. And this is going to help you reclaim yourself. And then after that, we're going to talk about how to face that what if it crumbles fear and what to do if they give you crumbs rather than nothing at all. So here's your 5-step plan to pull back. The first thing you're going to do is spot the overachiever. You're going to take a second to see where you are playing the superhero, where you are doing all of that emotional heavy lifting while your partner's chilling. And so all you're trying to do here is see, what does your load look like and what is your partner carrying? And then the second part is to chill before you spill. So before you react, take a deep breath, ground yourself, and make sure you're coming from a place of zen, not chaotic frenzy. Do that state change stuff I talked about earlier. So after you see the load, you do the state change stuff and you get to a place of zen. And then you retreat. That's step 3. So you take one of the things that you noticed in step 1, right? Part of your load, something you're dragging forward alone. And for that thing, whatever it is, just take the tiniest step back, just a little bit. Maybe you wait for your partner to text first. And really wait it all out. Hide your phone if you have to. Or maybe you tell your partner about your day when they come home rather than asking about theirs. And then wait to see how they respond. Do they ask any questions? Do they get curious about how it felt? Whatever it is, just make a tiny intentional step backwards. Do the opposite of what you would normally do. And if this feels impossible, ask a friend to sit on you if they have to. And then the fourth part is read the room. Watch how they respond. Do they rise to the occasion? If you're telling them about your day, do they get curious and excited for what went on for you? Or do they dodge? Or do they just give you a temporary show? Whatever they do, write it down. Then your brain can't rewrite it with justifications and excuses later. And then the very last thing in this action plan is to choose your adventure. So take what you've learned, what you didn't want to know that you now know, and play that out. Play those small incidents out over the next decade. Assuming this relationship is something you want to build, what does it look like if you are doing all the work? Will you be able to keep going if your cup is empty? Maybe in the beginning of the relationship, they helped you build the frame. But now, if it's you doing all the work alone, do you even want to decorate the empty shell? But even knowing what you didn't want to know, which, to be honest, you already kind of knew, you still sometimes are stuck. And one thing that keeps you stuck is facing the if I step back, it'll all crumble fear. Listen, I get it. The thought of easing up, yeah, it freaks you out. But if the absence of your effort makes the whole thing collapse, darling, it was shaky to begin with. And if they step up, well, then boom, you've got something real. Either way, clarity is your new BFF. Another thing that keeps you stuck is the when they give you just enough to stay. Some partners will toss you crumbs, give you just enough to keep you around, but not enough to spark real change. It's called bare minimum moves. Those little gestures, and they vanish once the heat's off, once your upset is over. If their effort fades after a week or only shows up when you've made a fuss, that's not growth. That's them dodging discomfort. And remember, sweetheart, you deserve a partner who is all in, not just dipping a toe when the water gets hot. What you are looking for is true transformation, consistent, self driven effort that lasts. So after you do this, and you know what you didn't want to know, if you decide that your relationship, your life, doesn't actually feel as good as it looks, and you want to meet other women who are moving beyond just thinking about change and actually living transformation, check out Extraordinary Lives. It's our signature program designed for high-achieving women like you, women who are done with settling, done with spinning in self-doubt, ready to ask for what they need, and ready to create lives and relationships that feel as good as they look. Inside the program, you'll be surrounded by other powerhouse women who will champion you, support you, hold you accountable, and remind you of your brilliance when you forget. This isn't a community about fixing yourself because you were never broken. This is a community where you step into the life you actually want with other women that get it. Come and join us. You don't have to do this alone. Today, I am grateful for potholes in my journey. You know, the kind where you fall in so deeply that you can't see anything except the inside of that pothole? There was a day when I wasn't sure I would ever see the light of day again. And I am grateful that I have done the work. Enough work that I know I'll never wonder that again because I have climbed out of every single one. Go me! And each one has given me another facet, adding to my brilliance. Some of these potholes, they've also redirected my path. The upheaval of it all, putting me closer to the path that I am meant to walk, the one that I am walking. What are you grateful for today? With love, until next time.